to For Collectors.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to our channel For Collectors, a channel for collectors. I'm Theo. My channel's name's Clemente Collector, and I got two of my closest friends in the hobby here with me today. I got Graig. Graig, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Graig. Midlife Sports Cards, Midlife Cards. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Whenever you ask, if I'm available, I'm always in. You know that.
Thanks, man. And then we got Darren there. Darren, you want to give a shout out for your channel before we start?
Hey guys, Darren, Return to Collecting. Thanks for having me on, Theo. Always fun to do a live stream with you.
Thanks, man. Hey, I'm starting to see after you got on with Mike, I was thinking maybe Darren's not going to answer my text anymore. You're getting pretty big now.
Yeah, right.
Big shot over there. I'm a little bit congested, guys. This is going to be like my Michael Jordan flu game tonight, so hopefully I can perform at top level. So we got something fun today. Instead of picking one topic, I decided to pick numerous topics, kind of like a little bit of a round table. I'll ask the guys a question that they had a heads up about, get a couple minutes to answer each one. We're allowed to do a little bit of back and forth. But the main thing is I wanted to get the chat involved. I see we already have 15 people out there. I want to get the chat involved. Every question I ask the guys, I'm going to also ask the chat. So chat, please participate, and I'll put your answers up on the screen. I see we got Chris from Missouri here. I thought he was restricted from coming into these. Oh man. All right. So here's the first question today, and it's a little bit of an icebreaker. So growing up, one of my favorite things to do on Friday night was watch TGIF. So what is the best show from TGIF? And they've had numerous ones: Step by Step, Family Matters, Sabrina the Witch, Boy Meets World. So Graig, I'll start with you. I don't know if maybe you're too old. Maybe you didn't watch TGIF. You were out partying. I don't know.
No. I'm not. I'm pretty much the same age as you guys, aren't I? My favorite TGIF. So obviously, Family Matters I liked, but as soon as you said Boy Meets World, see, I had it pretty good for Topanga. I was a Topanga guy. See, I'm like they're my age, so Topanga, I was just like. That's her man. I think her name's like Danielle Fisher or something.
Yeah.
So if that show is ever on, I was watching that.
Nice. Darren, what's your pick? Or you didn't really care for TGIF?
I didn't really do much TGIF. I don't know when I remember it. I don't think I watched much of it though at that point. Maybe I'm a little older than you guys.
No, man. You're my age. I was just home watching it. And you were out with people. We're like the exact same age, Darren.
Sort of. Exact same age. I think I'm a year older, but yeah, close enough.
Darren was living his best life. Me and Graig were. Well, I was in. I want to say I was elementary school and the middle school when it was really popular. But I'm gonna have to agree with you. Boy Meets World was life changing. It was just such a cool show. I used to love watching that, and then I would watch on what was it called? Was it called Nick at Night? I used to love Wonder Years. So, but those were some of my favorite.
Yeah, Wonder Years.
Wonder Years started, I think, on ABC or something, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then it went over
to
Nick at Night once it was in like reruns and stuff. But
yeah, when you were
Wonder Years is one of the best shows ever.
I was gonna say when Theo was TGIF age, that was the age I was when Wonder Years was on ABC.
There you go. So we actually have a vote for. He said he used to watch Dukes of Hazzard. I never got to watch Dukes of Hazzard as a kid. So.
I watched Dukes of Hazzard, but I was little. I was like 6 or 7 when that show was on. But I remember getting fired up for that show. Now I don't even know if they could run that show.
Right.
That's true. All right. Well, let's. We did the icebreaker. That was a lot of fun. Let's get into some card related topics. So a lot of these questions are going to have to deal with card grading, and I know a lot of guys out there grade their cards or buy graded cards. So the first one is when you purchase a graded card, is there a grade you tend to buy more often, and why? And whoever wants to start, go ahead.
Graig, please.
So I don't. I mean, I genuinely mean it when I say that I do genuinely try to buy the card, not the grade. And I have a lot of cards that I think are undergraded, which is why I buy that grade. Like some people are like, "Oh, you bought a 3, but you paid more than the average 3 prices." I'm like, "Yeah, because it looks like a 5." Because I bought a 5 at a high 3 grade price. So I genuinely don't think that I do. I will say that there are a couple of things like for PSA, you could have a light crease all the way up to a 4, but in SGC, you could have a light crease all the way up to a 5. Now, I don't think they give a lot of cards that have creases anymore, those grades, but they could. So if you see a PSA card with a 5, it's not going to have a crease because it's not
Right.
in the parameters of their description. What I find myself buying a lot of are 2s, especially when we're talking pre-war stuff. When we go pre-war, a 2, and I've said this before, I've used this analogy on my channel, but it's like, if you get an F on a test, an F could be a 0 or an F could be a 59%. An F is broad, and a 1 is really an F. It could be a card that got run over by a truck 10 times, or it could be a card that just has 2 deep creases. And those are very, very different. Or maybe it has a pinhole, or maybe it has some paper loss on the back. But then if you go to a 2, you're not going to have a lot. You're not going to have pinholes. You're not going to have tons of paper loss. You're not going to have all that stuff. So I have a few cards because you asked me to bring a few cards on that I use as an example. So like, here's a 2. This is Miller Huggins. Miller Huggins is a Hall of Famer. He was the manager of the Yankees during a lot of their time. But I mean, that card, that's a 2. That looks like a 4 to me. I mean, it's got good color. And then you go, okay,
or something?
No,
Yeah.
there's no wrinkle.
There's
no wrinkle. Like? You look at the back, and the back is great.
My gosh.
So what I do is I buy 2. A 1 is going to have a major issue. A 2's not. And even like here's a 1.5. Now, Chief Wilson's not a Hall of Famer, but he does have probably one of the most unbreakable records, which is the triples in a season record. There's only been like one person in the last like 50 years with 20 triples, and he had 36 or 37 in a season. But I mean, it's like that's a really, really nice looking card. And you can see there's a little crease at the top corner along diagonally. But other than that, I mean, it's a beautiful card. And again, the back is beautiful. So I find that you get a lot of bang for your buck on the 2s. Here's a couple more. Here's another Hall of Famer. Here's Chief Bender, actually. But you look at that card, no crease on that card. There's no crease on that card. It's a 2. It's got a clean back too. So on a 1, you could see a card that looks like it was, literally dropped out of an airplane. But at 2, you can get a card that looks really, really nice like that. So when we're talking pre-war, I do lean 2s, but I wouldn't rule out a 1. I have everything. I think my highest pre-war card is maybe I have a couple 3.5s. I'm just looking up at my case on the wall. I've got a couple 3.5s up there. No, I have a 4.5 pre-war card, but for the most part, that 2 to 3.5 is sort of the sweet spot for me, where you're getting a pretty nice looking card, and it's not going to be crazy expensive. I didn't even pull out my Christy Mathewson. My Christy Mathewson is a 2, T206 Christy Mathewson, and it's a 2, and it's like, it's gorgeous. It doesn't have a crease. I'm like, how's this a 2? So pre-war, a lot of 2s. After, post-war cards where I tend to be 3s to 5s, but I just try to find one that's in a 3 holder that looks like a 5 to me, or a 4 holder that looks like a 6. So I try to buy undergraded stuff so I get the most for my money. So, but it's not a particular number.
Okay. I kind of figured you would say something like that. It's good that we have Darren here, who I've heard him say numerous times. He goes after collector's grades. So, Darren, what are you going to say?
I'd say so when you asked me this question, I didn't know. So I spent a good solid 3 hours of work time yesterday cataloging all the grades of all my cards and coming up with the average.
Oh my gosh.
Across all from my oldest stuff, my 1888s all the way up to modern, The average grade in my collection is an 8. But like you said, I buy collector's grade typically. But like Greg said, actually, it's funny that he showed some of those because 2 of the cards that I wanted to show that I bought purely because how they looked and not because of the grade. One is Walter Johnson in a 2. Same thing as his, right? It's got, it's not centered top to bottom perfectly, but side to side's good. And it's got 4 solid corners and, the back's a little more top to bottom off center, but it's still pretty clean.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 2, right? There's no wrinkles or anything on it. So the eye appeal of it was totally worth picking this up. So, in this one, I got the 2.
Let me jump in on that real quick. Hold that card back up for a second. Hold that card back up. So when you look at that card, the other thing about this, and I made this point in a live stream we did recently, is that's an older grade. That's like a generation 6 or 7 grade. You can tell that because it doesn't have the Lighthouse logo. It doesn't have the little logo right before that. But everything else, it's probably like a 6 or 7. I'd have to look. The back would tell. But the point is that holds up as a 2. So a lot of people say, oh, they're grading harder, which I think they are. But not every grade is no longer valid. That is still a beautiful 2. So I have to throw that in there because I think some people just invalidate all old holders, and that's not always the case. That's still a beautiful 2 and will always be a beautiful 2.
No, I agree.
So sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good, Greg. And then the other one, I was thinking, this one is not a collector's grade. So this is a 34 Gaudy Hank Greenberg in a 2. And this is one of the cards I was going after at the National. And I was actually surprised at how few of this card there were available there. I only found a couple of them. And this one in a 2 is fairly well centered. And the corners are a little soft, but other than that, it's a great looking card, right? So I figured for a 2, I'd pick it up. It was worth it. Plus I saved thousands of dollars over buying it in a 3 or a 4. So in some cases I buy whatever grade makes sense. I think Orlando just made a comment of I buy the card in a grade that is in my budget, and that kind of drives it. But then sometimes too, I'll go above collector's grade. Like I found this 39 Playball DiMaggio. I would have bought it in a 3 if it was collector's grade, but it was a beautiful 6, and I decided to forego buying a couple other cards at the show I was at and get this instead.
Now you're just flexing, man. You're not allowed to do that on here.
Okay, sorry. Now,
Darren.
Then the other card I'll just put back. I won't show that one.
So Darren, that Hank Greenberg you just showed is gorgeous. Show that one again. I have a question about that. So
yes.
When you buy that card, which is a really, really nice 2, did you pay in the range of what 2s usually go for, or did you go above that because it's a really nice copy of a 2?
Good question. So I actually went above, not by much though. I went a few hundred over what the comps were going on the 2. I actually bought this from Theo's buddy. What's Theo, your buddy? That's the dealer you had on your.
Howard.
Howard, yeah, I bought this from Howard.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
But yeah,
awesome.
no, I paid a few hundred. That one actually was, well, in fairness, that one was more than a few hundred more. I paid a few hundred more, but then Howard hit me up for sales tax, which is annoying. But so I had to pay Illinois sales tax on that, so that basically doubled the price of the card. But
so Mangini said someone defined collector's grade for me. So Darren, since you're the one that buys more collector's grades than most, go ahead and define it.
John, so I think of the way I define collector's grade, I don't think there's like a set definition, but the way I would define it is
He's giving you crap, but go ahead. You bit, now you gotta go.
Grade for everybody else that isn't sure, it's the grade for the decade. So if it's a 50s card, it's a 5. It's a 60s card, it's a 6.
Yeah. So
if it's from the 1800s, it's a negative. I don't know.
I've gotten to where I speak pretty good Mangini now, so I can I can kind of decipher where he's actually going. He as he said just a second ago in there, collector's grade as opposed to people who don't collect grade.
Right.
That's John. So
collector's grade versus flippers grades.
There you go.
I have had a couple people that have commented on my videos before when I've said that terminology before. So I did want to bring it up just in general. I know Mangini was messing. So I went through all my cards. I kind of already knew the answer. For whatever reason, I always buy 4s and 4.5s. I think the main reason, and here's 3 cards in a row: 57 Clemente, 58 Clemente, 59 Clemente, all 4.5s. I think the reason actually is I try to I don't want cards with creases or wrinkles normally. So that's one of the, obviously that's like over a 3 grade normally. And then I like nice corners and edges and things like that. So 4.5 seems like the sweet spot usually when I'm looking at cards. I will buy any grade. I have authentics, I have 1s, I have 2s, but in like a normal base card, that's typically where I end up at. It's a 4 or a 4.5. So, all right, let's move on to the next. Let's move on to the next topic. All right, when a card, this is perfect for Mangini. I didn't even know he's going to be here. So when a card is pop rare, like a PSA 10 card, does the hobby overpay by too big of a percentage? Does modern pop rare or vintage pop rare make a difference? So, who wants to tackle that question first?
Do you want me to go?
Yeah,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead, Darren.
All right. So I think I'll start with the vintage versus modern. The cards, I thought about that actually. When you threw that question out there, I was thinking about it yesterday. I think it depends on the card, but from the cards that I'm going after, the gold cards I'm going after, they're valuable in any grade, right? I think it has, especially all of it's vintage, but I think it's valuable in every grade. And I think that obviously as you jump up to, lower and lower pop, as you go higher up, yes, the price goes up, but it's not as steep of a bell or steep of a hockey stick with some of the vintage as opposed to the modern stuff. It is, right? So some of the cards I wanted to give examples of, the bonds rookie, this thing in the 10 is $350. In a 9, it's $35. Can you tell the difference looking at a 9 or a 10? Probably not. Would I buy this today? No. I picked it up before COVID, so it wasn't that price. But
Okay.
there are definitely examples of cards like the Griffey rookie too, right? Same thing. It's $2,000 in the 10 and it's $200 in the 9. Can you tell the difference between them? Probably not. So I think yes, there's a lot, especially on the modern stuff. There's a lot of, to an extent, almost too much value placed on the 10. I think as you get older, not as much, right? Like if you think about the 52 Topps mantle and the 10, there's 3 of them, super high demand card. There's only 3 in the world, so that drives the price, right? So it's, all the prices are driven by supply and demand. But I think that as you go more vintage, the percentage increase grade by grade is smaller, right? Like you pick up a 52 Topps mantle in a 6 versus a 5, it's not like the price craters out, right? It's expensive in any grade.
So let's talk about the Griffey real quick, because I think the Griffey is a great example of this question for modern. If I know Griffey's card's been around for a while, but modern cards. So, how much does a PSA 10 Griffey go for? Do you know?
2,000.
All right, and what's a 9 go for?
200.
200. Okay, so 10 times. So what would you guys, if you guys were sitting there and you could actually come up with, like, if you never collected cards and somebody just said, how much higher you think this should be? Here's how many of each there are. What would you say? Would you say that it should be double the price? It should be triple the price? Like, I think most people from the outside looking at this would say, how are you going to pay 10 times and these cards look the same? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that if somebody was new to collecting and they asked me that, I'd say you wouldn't. I mean, unless you have a microscope, you're not going to tell the difference between a 9 and a 10, especially of a newer card like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know the population of 9, but I know there's a ton of 10s. I think it's the most graded card. I think the Griffey rookie is the most graded card. And, I doubt that there's 100 times more 9s than there are 10s to warrant the, 10 times as many 9s as 10, to warrant the 10x price differential.
Right.
So I think that's a good example of a card that I think is overpriced for the supply of it and for the, you know, how when it's that new of a card, you literally, if I bought a 9, actually I have a 9 here.
You could send that to me. It's fine.
The 9, the
No,
9's part of my giveaway for my, but no, what's the difference?
3% centering.
Yeah, I mean we're talking like, you know, hair. When I say hair thin, I'm talking like my thin hair thin. I mean, it's not like a nice thick hair thin. I mean, it is super close, right? So how do you? I would have to look at the grade to figure out which one's which. They're that similar. So I mean, I would say if somebody's new, buy the less expensive one because they look exactly the same.
So what do you think, Graig?
I think the most ridiculous thing is buying 10s instead of 9s. I think when people are going crazy because, you know, they got their stuff back and PSA gave some brand new 2023 card or 2024 card a 10 instead of a 9, and now it's worth 3 times as much. I think that's absolutely insane. Again, it's an opinion that PSA or SGC or whatever is giving. It's an opinion. And the reason I know it's an opinion and not a fact is because facts don't change, right? Like George Washington is the first president of the United States. That's a fact. That's not going to change. But if I got a card graded with a 9 and I sent it back in, it could get a 10. It could change. So it can't be a fact. It has to be an opinion. A fact is something that's absolute. So when somebody is paying 10 times or 3 times the cost of something for an opinion, I think that for me, that's nuts. I had a SGC submission, and I don't submit much, but I did submit some cards, and the grades posted today. And I was talking in a group text that you're on, Theo, and I said, yeah, if the grades come back high, I'm selling the cards. If the grades come back low, I'm keeping the cards, because if the grades come back high, it's worth more to somebody else than it is to me. I don't need the number to be higher. I want the nice looking card, but if somebody will pay me double what I think this is worth just because it got a higher number, then I'm going to sell it to them. And then I'm going to buy another one that I like, and I'm going to pocket the difference and put it towards some other card. So I think the fact that we place this much value on somebody's opinion, that it would be 10 times or 3 or 4 times in an ultra modern card, I think is absolutely insane.
Yeah. So he just gave you a hard time there, and I'm sorry.
Yeah,
about
no, I'm
that,
insane.
man.
It's fine. That's totally fine. If you ask my wife the same question, she would say the exact same thing. So it's cool.
Well, we also said that we weren't going to agree on everything here.
True. And to be
maybe
honest
this
with
is
you,
just maybe this is just the poor guy. Maybe this is the peasant class speaking down about the bourgeoisie. You know,
that's
so
probably
it could just be that. It's just, you know, I'm jealous.
No, and I'll you know, most of my 10s in my collection are I either bought pre-COVID, like a lot of my Ryans, well, all my Ryans from the 80s through 94, other than the 86 or 10s, but I bought them all pre-COVID, and I paid, you know, between $15 and $45 for most of them, right? So at the time I was like, well, you know, it's not a big deal. I'd rather, you know, for $45 I'll get the 10 versus 20 or 15 or whatever for the 9.
Yeah.
I think the only 10 I've purchased since COVID was the Griffey. And the only reason I did that was when I was a kid, that was my favorite card. I got that for my birthday. My mom bought me the complete set of 89 Upper Deck when they came out, and that was my favorite card. And then I don't know where my original one was, and I just wanted it really bad and felt I would, you know, splurge for my birthday a couple of years ago and overspend on the 10.
I mean,
I've had in my life, I've had 5 or 6 10s, and I've sold all of them.
Greg, let's just do a good hypothetical with like one of his Nolan Ryan cards that he bought. Let's say you go in there, it's one of his just regular cards, and the 10's $30 and the 9's $10. Now, is that a reasonable $20 pay up? Like, okay, that makes sense to me. Or is it still like, this is stupid? Like $10, I'll have $20 more.
That's a great question.
Greg, is the baseline of all of my collecting stupid? Is the question.
Come on, man. Come on. So first of all right, hold on. So first of all, nobody loves Darren more than Darren's dad and Darren's wife than me. Okay, so I'm not trying to put the screws to Darren. I'm just saying how Greg collects. This is how I collect. This does not mean it's the right way to collect. This is how I have to be much more creative with my money to be able to acquire the things that I want to acquire. If I had a different income bracket, then I would probably collect differently. I'm speaking from my perspective. Now, as far as your question right there, I think it's a great question. I mean, having a 10, a card with a 10 on it, there is something cool about it because you're like, you know, the authority, whether they should be or not, but the authority in evaluating these has decided that there's not one better on earth than mine. Like that's kind of cool to feel like you have the best one as good as there is on earth. And if my financial situation was different, I would probably be more open to it. In the situation that you just said, you know, it's all about opportunity cost. And it's, you know, if I have this, then I can't have this, or would I rather have this than this? When we're talking about $20, like, I mean, I spend, you know, $12 when you go through a drive-through. So $20 is like, I'd rather not get, you know, a coffee from Dutch Brothers for the next 2 days and then go to the 10 maybe. Like, it's not that much money. But when we're talking about some of the cards that, you know, Darren's flashing, it's big money, right? You know, it's like you just said, it's 2,000 versus 200, like that extra 1,800. So, but again, I do understand also it's the card as a kid. It's the iconic card from your childhood, and you want one as good as anyone on earth is. I do get that. I'm not speaking completely in a vacuum, but I am presenting my perspective.
Right. No, I think it's fair. I think my question was a bit unfair because we said 10 times is too much. And then I basically asked, what was it, 3 times, which was a little bit more reasonable and a little bit less money, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. I love this topic. I'm curious to see what the chat thinks about this one. Are either of you ever going to sub to PSA again? Let's start with Darren, who's been burned more times than I can count.
Yes. So my answer is probably for the foreseeable future, SGC. But I'm not going to say I'll never go back to PSA. I mean, my most recent PSA was probably my most annoyed. So I bought this 69 Ryan with the inscriptions on it, and it's annoying because the signature is a 10, but the guy that got it graded originally got it graded as trading card. So I sent it back to PSA to get it regraded so that it would say, you know, 1969 Topps Nolan Ryan, and then get, you know, at least authentic. So when you do a crossover, especially with the signature, even though it's PSA to PSA, I was on the phone with them. They're like, "Oh yeah, just do it as a crossover." I said, "I'm not crossing it over. It's PSA grade. I just need a new, you know, I just need a new tag on it." And they said, "You have to do it as a crossover." I said, "Okay, fine." And they said, "You have to tell us what the lowest grade you'll accept is." And I said, "I don't give a shit what the lowest grade is. Put a new. I don't care." So like, just pick one. So I'm like, "Fine, I'll pick a 4." So I sent it in. They had it for 3 months. They charged me the $150 because it's because I paid for autograph and card grade, even though they already graded the autograph, but you have to pay the $150.
Oh my gosh.
They kept the card for 2 months and sent it back to me and said minimum grade not met, and then charged me the $150 anyways. So that was my crappiest experience with them recently.
So wait, let me see that card again. So it says Gem Mint 10. Is that the autographs the 10? Is that what that means?
Yeah, because if you look at the description on it, it just says trading card. It doesn't say 1969 Topps. And that's all I really wanted. I mean, I don't even care if they just said authentic. I just wanted to say what the card is, not trading card.
What a joke.
And and of course, even though I paid $150 for literally nothing, plus shipping, of course, I called them and they're like, "We don't give any feedback on grades." I'm like, "Well, I need to understand what the problem is. Like, I'm not sending it back to you again and saying minimum grade is now a 2. Try again." So that's really pissed me off with them. So that's my most recent problem I've had with them. And I don't think I'm going to go to them for a while, but I'm not saying I'll never. I mean, I did get some cards back recently. This was in it, and I thought this was going to get like a 4, and it ended up getting a 6. So that was good, I guess. So it's not always bad with PSA. It's just from, my luck with PSA has been for every one card I feel is graded like overgraded, there's 9 that are undergraded or not graded at all and still charge me for it.
Yeah. So what was the total investment in that card that you sent it twice?
So actually I didn't send it in the first time. I bought it at a show.
Oh,
with the
okay.
slab. So I paid $100. So I bought the card,
right.
And then whatever I paid for that, I don't even remember. And then $150 for PSA to basically hold it for me for 2 months and then send it back to me.
Gotcha.
It's a good use. I mean, there's nothing else I could have spent. I could have bought like Greg's. Like I could have bought like 15 coffees with that.
I think the slabs actually. If I saw that slab on eBay, I would think the card's a Gen Mint 10. Like why doesn't it say autographed Gen Mint 10? Like it is actually confusing to somebody. Like I know I don't buy PSA slabs, but
at the bottom here it says auto grade.
Okay.
But like, yeah, it
just came out yesterday or the day before, I think on Instagram. PSA posted how they are switching their label for the exact reason that you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
So they are working on it, just for what that's worth. But
yeah,
good, because I yelled at them. I sent them emails and I called them and yelled at them. Which, by the way, with PSA is a pain in the ass. You can't. I love yelling at people when I get bad service, but it's hard to yell at them. You have to send them a note requesting they call you, and then within 72 hours, someone will call you, and then you could yell at them. It's not as fun. You're not in the moment, right? You're not worked up anymore. They call you back, and you're like, "Oh, hey, thanks for calling."
You're cooled down.
They called you, so you're not mad anymore.
Yeah, you cooled down. Like it's messed up. I don't like that either.
It's not fun.
This is what you do, though. This is what I started doing. Turn on your camera and shoot a video like you're talking to PSA, and then wait an hour to make sure if you really want to release it or not. Greg, what do you say? Are you ever going to use PSA again?
I wouldn't say I won't use PSA again. The main reason I get cards graded is because other people think they're worth more, so that if you're going to sell, you get more for it if you sell it, if it's graded. So it's like, I get them graded. If it gets a high grade, I'll sell it because other people think it's worth more. And if it gets a low grade, then I'm like, oh, okay, well, now it's in a holder. You have to remember, like, for 25 years, for me, it was only PSA. It was like, no way would you go to SGC. And the first time I sent to SGC was a couple years ago, and it went okay. And then I sent a couple times to PSA, and it went fine. And then all of a sudden, PSA started grading things like super dumb, and I was like, I'm going back to SGC, and then I just submitted to SGC. So the main issue I have with PSA, besides I do think there's consistency issues, but the main problem I have is they have my card so long. Yeah. I don't want them to have my card for 90 days. And even SGC, who I have good feelings and positive things to say about SGC, they're advertising 5 to 10 business day turnaround. And I just got my grades posted today, and it was the 14th business day. And you say, oh, Greg, it's only 4 days over. Come on. Well, 4 days when it's 10, the window is 5 to 10, they're over by 40%, 50% over. That's like PSA saying 60 days and then give it to me in 90. So it's a big miss. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't say never, but I certainly have a lot more positive thoughts about SGC than PSA at the moment.
Okay. Orlando brings up a great point here. The upcharge that PSA does, that's way more incremental than SGC. Just quickly, because we got more questions.
This applies more to Darren's cards than mine. So Darren, why don't you talk about upcharges?
Do you feel it's fair? Do you feel it's fair, Darren?
No, I think it's stupid. I think on the lives that you had, Greg, with Mangini and Blue Jacket, they made the same point. I loved the example of, I call the plumber and they say it's $200 to, fix my sink. Then they get to my house and they're like, oh, you live in a mansion, so now it's 400, right? Like, that's exactly how I feel about it. And I mean, I always lie anyways when I do my submission. I could submit I submitted a few pretty solid vintage cards to them and said that they were worth whatever, $1 less than the minimum. And I think I've only incurred an upcharge once. So for me, the upcharge hasn't been bad yet because they've slipped under the radar most of the time.
Okay.
So here, let me throw this out there, just because it's a thought that I've had about that upcharge thing for a while, and I might be insane in thinking this, but there are mistakes that happen. There are times a card gets damaged. There are times that when they encapsulate it, it pinches the card. Do you think, and I would love to ask Nat Turner this question, but is part of the reason for the upcharge because of the insurance of handling $1 million card? And if you damage it, it's a lot more expensive than damaging a $20 card. Like, could that be part of the reason? It seems like they would say that.
I think it has a little bit to do with that. I mean, it's more profit. I mean, I'm in sales. It'd be like if I was closing a deal with one of my customers, and then they announced their earnings and they had good earnings. I went back and said, hey, the deal we've been working on for 6 months is now twice as much. Why? Well, you made more money, so give me more of it. It just logically, the whole model doesn't make sense to me.
I think Dawn makes a good point. Whenever you get the upcharge email, it's usually a happy time because you're like, oh, they gave me a 5. I thought this card was a 3. You know what I mean? So a lot of times they're holding your card hostage and they're like, hey, you got a better grade. We're not going to let you know what it is, but you want to pay for it. So
and Dom's points, right? And that's fair, right? There's a saying. There was an oil guy back in like the 90s who made he made a ton of money one year. He was being interviewed on like CNBC or something, and they asked him, this guy T. Boone Pickens, they asked him, hey, you paid $1 billion in income tax last year. What do you think about that? And his response was, hell, I wish I paid $2 billion. So it's
right.
the same kind of logic, right? It's, hey, I submitted the card, I paid you. Hey, we're not going to give it back until you pay me more money. But when you pay us more money, you get a card back that's worth twice as much as you thought it was worth in the first place. Exactly. And you're like, that's great, but I'm not grading it so I could sell it. So I don't give a shit if it's worth twice as much. I don't want to pay you more money.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. So I've had 2 recent videos where I bought raw cards and graded them with SGC and had a lot of success. Are today's collectors too conservative, and ungraded is the right way to buy if you want if you actually want to save money? And I'll actually start on this one, but let me post it here before I start. So I'm going to show the 2 cards that I graded recently. So I got a cons card here, and it got a 1, but and then I got the 72 Pro Star card, and both of them, if you look at comps in these grades, even though this is a 1 and this is a 4, both of them would have cost me another $100 based on recent sales. Now, somebody would say, well, if you kept them ungraded, what does it matter? What does it matter? Well, my point is I like my cards graded. So I either had the choice of buying ungraded and getting them graded or buying them already graded. So do you guys feel that the modern or the current collectors, and a lot of the current collectors might have just got in the last 2 or 3 years, do you feel like they're too scared to buy ungraded and get graded themselves? Or do you feel there's a good mix out there and it's not actually true? Greg, if you want to go.
I think buying online is largely blind. You see a picture, you can't see the surface, and we know that the surface is a good chunk of what determines the condition of a card. And so what happens when it is graded is more people are at ease to go for that card. So if more people are at ease to go for that card because they have a better idea of what it does and doesn't have, then the demand goes up potentially of buyers for that card, which then increases the value. So I think when people are buying online and comps are coming from online, and graded cards have more demand because there's just the security of doing it that way, because you have a professional who is looking at the card and evaluating the flaws and stuff, that just by nature it makes it in higher demand. So I mean, there are a lot of people out there that find some people who have nice ungraded stuff, pay solid raw prices, send it in and get it graded, and then sell it. I mean, there are a lot of people who do really, really well doing that because of the security that it provides for some people. It doesn't mean that it's a bad buy for the other people. It's just they're paying for the card and the peace of mind that what they're buying is largely what they think they're buying.
Wouldn't you say, Greg, if the dealers that are out there on eBay looking for cards, obviously the best situation for dealers to buy a collection, we know that, but a dealer that's out there that's trying to make money for a living, isn't that how they work the system? They buy ungraded, and they go, well, if it gets a 4, I think it's a 4. Probstein saying it's a 4. Well, I've got $200 here. Do you think that's dealers are actually taking advantage of it more than the collector themselves, or not really?
I think that the people who are trying to make a living have to find a hustle, and a hustle that kind of pays the bills.
Yep.
And one of the hustles that pays the bills is doing what you just described. And you can get burned occasionally,
Right.
but if you have a pretty good eye for stuff and you can get some assurance about surface and stuff, there's a lot of money to be made simply by doing that. And so yeah, I think a lot of dealers do that. I think a lot of young kids who are living in their parents' basement are doing that. And I think that a lot of people who are just have money and don't want to go through the hassle of it are the ones paying the premium for the graded card, because then they know what they're getting. So I think it's more dealers that are doing that than collectors. I think most of the collectors, as a bunch of people are screaming in the chat, is, well, I don't need my cards to be graded. So I'm not even going to send them in. So I definitely think it's more of a dealer thing than a collector thing.
This comment interests me. Dealers and flippers are bad for the dealers are flippers and they're bad for the hobby. I guess my counter to that is, how would we have a national or any card show if we didn't have any dealers?
Yeah, unless a person that has an awesome collection that wants to trade with you all the time, you definitely need dealers. My thing is, my issue, this is a totally off topic. Obviously, it's kind of going this way, but the guys that flip are different. I think dealers and flippers, are different. I think dealers are people that are potentially collectors that retired and want something to do. They work for, or somebody that works for a baseball card store, or this is their business. Versus a flipper, to me, is somebody who's like, hey, I opened this pack of whatever, I got a super retro taco fractor and I'm going to get it graded and I'm going to sell it for $1 million. That's a flipper. Who cares, right? The guys that were buying $750,000 Michael Jordan rookie cards in 2020 that now can't sell them ever. They're not, to me, that's a flipper. Somebody who doesn't, I guess, if you know and appreciate the hobby and you sell cards, you're a dealer. If you don't really care about the hobby and you just want to do, you think that it's a quicker way to make money doing this than, running some other scam, then you're a flipper. That's kind of how I would define it.
And you want to go back to the original question?
Yes, the original question, though. I personally, because of the cards that are on my list and the cards I've been buying over the last couple of years, I buy graded because I don't have the eye that Mangini has. If I would never buy $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 ungraded card just out of fear I'm buying something that might be fake. Am I guaranteed that's not fake if I buy it that's graded already? No, but at a minimum, does it make me feel better about spending the money? A little bit, maybe. And I don't do a lot of grading, actually. I buy most of my stuff graded already. I have some examples. I have my 41 play ball Ted Williams. It's in terrible shape. I knew that. This has been my dad and I bought this in Cooperstown when I was a kid when we went to the Hall of Fame, and I had it in a screw down plastic for 35 years. And I decided to get it graded just because I wanted to display it with other cards in the collection, and my cards are all displayed, standing up in cases. So I got it graded for that. And did I,
Right.
is it dumb to have spent, whatever it was? I mean, not that much, $30 or whatever, not to me. So, but on the other side though, there are dumb things you can grade. Want to see what I paid or I think it was $25 to grade this bad boy.
Oh, I can't wait. Let's go.
Woo! 9. See that? This is worth $6. So it's definitely, you never know. Like early last year, I started, opening packs. I was buying boxes and opening packs, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. It's like reminds me when I was a kid. And I'm like, oh, I don't know any of these players. Like, oh, I'm like Wander Franco. I know him. This one looks like, an 89 top. So this is sweet. And they're like a 9. I'm like, crap. And that's the thing. Like we talked about earlier, the modern stuff, if you send it in and get graded, if you don't get a 10, you're upset because it's not worth anything unless it's a 10. This is probably worth nothing in the 10 anyways. But I graded this before his issues arose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's not a recent thing. That would have been dumb.
I do crack up about you trying to collect the Aaron Judge rainbow with the three home run hitters on it. Like that was crazy, wasn't it?
That was, yeah. I mean, I don't know. At the time, I thought it was fun, and then I got it all, and I have this whole stack, and I'm like, I paid all this money for these cards, and I paid most of those I actually bought raw, and I sent them in and got graded.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I paid for the grading, I paid for the cards, and now they sit in a box that I don't look at or even open to look at. They sit in the same box that this sits in.
Yeah. I do want to say something, because to me that $6 card is now, to me, it's considered a junk slab. That's my opinion on it. Because a junk slab to me is when the card grading fee is higher than what the card's worth graded. That's my opinion. But the other day, Sports Card Investor had a whole episode, and I did not click on it, so I don't know what the decision was. But they said, did the junk slab error never even occur? Is it just a fake thing but the video before, he had Mojo in his card shop, and Mojo's getting Kobe Bryant cards for $10, all these $6 cards and slabs. He's buying all these slabs that are under $15. And I'm thinking to myself, you just had an episode where you have all these slabs less than $15, and you're asking the question, did it never happen?
Right.
I don't know. Just really frustrated me. All right, let's change topics here. Let me I'll ask the question here. Let me put it up in the chat, see if anybody has any responses. We're going to switch from grading to more collecting stuff here.
We're going from grading to upgrading.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes we use the term upgrade, meaning getting a better quality card, but the same card. I've never personally upgraded any of my cards. I'll never say never, but what's you guys' opinion on upgrading a card in your collection? So who wants to start?
Greg, go ahead.
So I think that the definition of upgrade might be different for different people. Upgrade in the grade or upgrade in what you prefer in the card. I mean, I have a card. Again, I tried to grab a few cards that related to some of this. So I have this. This is a 58 Topps Johnny Unitas. So this is a second-year Johnny Unitas card. And you can see it's off-center.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a 6 holder. It's super sharp card. I mean, and in the back is like super clean. A lot of the times people have rubbed a coin on there, right there, and it messes it up and stuff. But super clean-looking card. But where I am in my collecting now, the centering bugs me. Mm-hmm. And so I like the card. I like having a 58 Topps Johnny Unitas, but that one, the centering is annoys me. So I would consider getting rid of that one and getting a different one. Now, I would be open to a 4. I would be open to a 5. I would be open to another 6 or 7. I just want one that when I look at it, it doesn't bug me anymore. So that's an example of a card because some of my preferences changed as far as what I want in a card. It's a card that I could see getting rid of and replacing. I did replace this card. So this is, in my opinion, my favorite Wilt Chamberlain card. And this one is in a 7 holder. And I had one before it, which was in a 6 holder, but it wasn't as well centered. It was fairly off center. And I really like this Wilt Chamberlain card. But I'm like, this one, the one that I had was just, I couldn't handle it anymore because of the centering. So I'm like, well, I want to have that Wilt Chamberlain, but I want a centered one. So I sold my 6 that was off centered and I bought a 7 that was centered. So if there's a something about a card that after I buy it starts to drive me crazy, but I like that particular card, just not that copy of the card, then I have a few times sold my copy and gotten a different copy, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a higher grade. It could just be one that I like the looks of better.
So you've purposely had a placeholder card. You knew you were buying it as a placeholder, and you said, whenever I get enough money, I'm going to replace this card. Or you, over time, you changed your mind on it.
That's not what happened there. I do have a couple of placeholder cards, and as Darren's talking, I can grab a couple placeholder cards for you to show you that. I didn't grab those, but in these instances, when I bought the other cards, like when I bought this Unitas, I liked it. I liked this Unitas, but then my preference changed where I wanted centering more. So now I don't like it anymore. It's a beautiful card. I just don't like this one. It drives me crazy when I look at it. So I want a different one. And that was the same thing with the Chamberlain. Is the Chamberlain was centered like this Unitas. So I didn't want it anymore because it drove me crazy to look at it. So I still wanted the card. I just wanted a centered one.
Is that because Wilt Chamberlain's head's off centered in the purple square?
Well, Chamberlain. Well, I love it. You gotta love his shorts. Look at those shorts, man. Come on. So yeah, I didn't buy them as placeholders. I bought them because at the time, for me, corner sharpness was the most important thing, and now it's not for me. So my preferences changed.
Yeah. So I had a similar situation. So the 1958 Topps Clemente card is one of my favorite Clemente cards, but I bought this 2 years ago, and at the time I was really looking for sharp corners, and this does have very sharp corners. But now when I look at it, I just can't stop thinking about how the borders look. It's not a favorable card with the white borders. So now I'm like, if a card bothers me whenever I look at it, like man, I wish I had a different copy of that card. And a lot of people in the chat have brought up the word downgrading, because I never used the word downgrading. But sometimes, like you said, a downgrade is an upgrade. So if I could possibly get a 3 with maybe some better centering, I think I would probably prefer that. So, Darren, go ahead.
Sure. So in general, no, I don't upgrade. I typically, if there's a card I want, I'll kind of set in my head the quality level I'm willing to accept, like the minimum quality level. And if it's out of budget, I'll wait till I've got the money to buy it. Right. The only card I could find that is, we'll call it a placeholder, something that I definitely want to upgrade, is my 86 Topps Nolan Ryan, because I've got the whole run in 10s. So it's the only, all the 80s through 90s in 10s. And this is my only 9. So kind of, when I did my showcase showdown with Mike, it was a letdown. So this one's an upgrade now, but that's it. First time ever, probably the only time. It's Mike's fault.
That is funny. Greg, did you find some examples you wanted to show? Greg, do you need more time, or did you find some cards that you?
So here are 2 placeholder cards that I bought. So this is a 51 Bowman Phil Rizzuto, and it looks okay. I mean, it's centered, right? But it's got a couple of pretty gnarly creases in it. And I bought it because it was super cheap at a card show. It was like $20. And I was like, well, it's centered and it'll look decent until I get one that I really like the looks of. And I have the same thing with the Robin Roberts. I mean, that card, you can see the corners, but it's got several creases in it. But from a distance, like right there on the screen, it looks okay. So I'd like to have a nicer one. But I like collecting 51 Bowman Hall of Famers. There's like, I don't know, 25 of them or something. And I've got a handful of them and I want to have them all. And so I'm like, well, I'll just buy it now. I'll have one. And then someday if I find a pretty decent one, at a good deal, I'll buy it. I'm not urgent because I have one. And then I'll sell this one for, less. And then I'll just pay a little bit for the increased one that I like the looks of better. So I don't do that a lot, but I do have a few cards that I've bought as placeholders.
Okay. Is your thought similar to mine though? When you look at that card, you just have that feeling inside where you're just like, man, I just don't like, for some reason, I don't like how this card looks. I just like I said, like it just bothers you a little bit.
And then there are some cards you look at and you just go, I really like the looks of it. And I know it's kind of beat up, but for some reason, I just like the looks of it. Like, there's absolutely something about it fitting your eye and not fitting your eye, regardless of whether it makes sense to anybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Adam from Vintage Sanctuary said it perfect one time. He goes, when I look at a card and I don't love it anymore, that's whenever I decide to possibly, upgrade it or downgrade it. Whenever I feel like, man, I don't love that card, which is a good way to kind of explain it. But let's move on to the next topic. So this is pretty interesting because Graig actually had a video today. He does his monthly card market videos, if you want to call them that. But when the card market is dipping, what is your buying strategy? Since Graig had a video today about it, Darren, you want to start with this one?
Sure. When the market's dipping, yeah, absolutely. So obviously, I don't have cards to show because those are things I don't have yet.
Right.
But yeah, for me, when the market dips, one of two things: either I can buy more cards on my list sooner, or I can buy, we'll call it nicer eye appeal versions of the cards that are on my list. Now, there were a couple cards on my list that Graig and I talked about when we did our kind of goals for 2024. They both dipped. I basically, I have a spreadsheet, all the cards on my list, all the grades I'm interested in, and the price ranges for them that they've kind of seen over the last couple of years. And then when one kind of breaks below that price point, that's when I'll go pick one up. Now, I had a couple that just recently broke through on the bottom, so I ordered them both, and they're both in the grades that one's in the grade I was expecting, one's in a slightly higher grade than I was expecting. And when they come in, I'll do a video with those. But for me, it's just either pick up the same cards that I wanted to get nicer or buy more of the cards sooner. So it's not, when the prices go down, I don't get upset. Like when, if I pull up vintage card pricing and it's like, hey, your collection value has gone down 3% this month. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll go buy some more stuff. I don't care. I'm not selling it anytime soon. So
yeah. I think a good point though is, I know you have a budget that you try to stay by. So like right now, the card market's been down for, I don't know how many months. I'm not even going to, it depends on what graph you look at. Are you looking and going, man, I need to increase that budget and take advantage of this down market right now? Or are you saying, I'm going to stick to my budget, and similar to what you just said, what cards you were going to buy? So are you sticking to your budget or are you increasing your budget?
I'm sticking to my budget. My stepdaughter got her license last year and bought her car and she crashed it. And we bought her a second car and we got our insurance bill for 2024. And my budget is not going up this year. That's for sure.
Right.
But no, I don't, joking aside, I don't, no, I don't think so. I very rarely when I see a card that I really want and I see it, and if it's something I could find readily, no. If it's something where it's like, I've been trying to find this card for a very long time and I've not been able to, and it finally goes up for sale and the price is good, but it's more than what I wanted to spend right now, would I borrow from future budget? Sure.
I got you. Graig, what do you
So
want to add?
So by nature, I'm kind of a contrarian. When the stock market dips, I buy, and when the stock market goes up, I try to sell. And I mean, when COVID hit and the market absolutely tanked in about 2 weeks, it went down like tons and tons and tons. I literally went to my savings account. I pulled out a bunch of money and I bought a bunch of stuff, Home Depot, FedEx, a bunch of things like that. 2 months later, everyone realized the world wasn't going to end and it went back up, and I doubled my money in like 2 months. So I tend to go in when everyone else is going out and vice versa. And I think Darren hit it on the head when he said it doesn't really matter if you're not selling. If my house triples in price, it doesn't really matter if I'm not selling. If
Right.
it goes way down in price, it doesn't matter if I'm not selling. I locked in at a price. So for the most part, I think that it doesn't really, it's, so I guess my answer is I try to dollar cost average. It's like, I set up my retirement account when I was 21 years old, and I started putting money into my retirement account when I was 21 years old. And as far as my retirement account went, I didn't start putting more in when I thought the market was down, or put in less when I thought the market was peaking. I just put in every month. And then some of them you're buying at a deal, and some of them you're not buying at a deal. And I just try not to think about it. When I have money kind of banked up and I see cards at good deals, then I lean into buying when they're good deals. I think kind of along the lines of what Darren was just saying. But the stuff that I've been kind of into lately is not the kind of stuff that hits the market every day. So you can't just go, oh, I think the market's going to go down more. There aren't a ton of, some of the cards that I want in the certain grade range that I can afford. There might only be a handful of them that I like the looks of. So when one comes up, you kind of got to buy it, or else it's not going to come up again.
I agree with Greg on
Right.
that. There's quite a few players who I'm chasing now, some of their cards that aren't going down. Ty Cobb's really not going down. Honus Wagner's going up. Jackie Robinson it's depending on the card. Some of them have kind of dipped, but some of the one that the one I'm chasing is going up still. So I think it's timing the market never makes sense. I don't think with anything. It's too difficult to time the market unless, like Greg said, you have a situation like when COVID happened and you see the market skyrocketing and you're like, crap, I just opened a bunch of boxes of packs and I got some, super fractors and I'm going to slab them and sell them because somebody's going to pay a lot of money for it and it doesn't mean anything to me. With the exception of like extreme examples like that, it's difficult to do that because you could say, I want a 52 tops mantle really bad. Really, really bad. I want 52 tops mantle. And you're like, okay, right now a one is 25,000 or whatever the hell it's at, right? I'm going to wait it out and I'll buy it when it goes down to like, say, 18,000. Okay, cool. A year and a half from now, a one could be 40,000. Then what are you going to do? Right. So to me, timing it doesn't make sense. It's too difficult of a task to time it.
Especially with vintage cards.
Yeah.
With modern cards, there are all these people that are like selling the quarterbacks right now because if they win tomorrow or 2 days from now, it's going to be a completely different valued card, which for a month, which that makes no sense to me. Timing a market and timing a wave and waiting until the team makes the playoffs or wins the MVP, like that has some maybe validity to it. But again, that to me is just day trading. That's not really card collecting.
I agree with you.
So as a buyer of vintage cards, personally, I just, when the card that I want comes up in the grade I can afford and it meets what I'm looking for in it, if I have the money for it, I buy it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm following you guys, and I think the chat maybe is getting a little bit of annoyed with the question. I think us three have budgets, and it's kind of important. It's a conversation. And here's my strategy. I spend the same amount every month. I stick to it. If the market goes from this February all the way down a cliff to next February, I spent the same amount every month. So doesn't matter to me. But my big thing right now is with the market being more down than what I've seen, I've been going after cards that I didn't think I would own for years. So instead of getting nickeled and dimed and buying $50 cards, I'm going after $150 cards that were maybe $300 or $350 a year ago. So that's kind of what my strategy's been, because my thought is a $50 card today, even what's it going to be if the market goes up 55, 60? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but some of these cards that are more scarce might go way up again. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my thought process.
Yeah, low-hanging fruit. That makes sense.
All right, let's move on. When buying on eBay, have you had more success on a buy it now or the auction? I think this is a pretty easy question. Who wants to start?
I don't think it's an easy question. I think that there are a lot of times that I think that buy it nows are better deals. You just have to be paying attention. I've had many times I've seen a card go up and I'm like, I couldn't hit buy it now fast enough, because I'm like, I can't believe that card is selling for that right now. And there have been a lot of times that I didn't do it, and I looked a couple hours later and the card was sold, you know? Now, generally speaking, yeah, I mean, the auctions tend to be lower because otherwise the buy it now would have sold. But I want to be the guy who hits the buy it now. So multiple times, I mean, I have my saved searches in eBay, and multiple times a day I check them and I see if there's anything new that popped up. And if there's a deal there, I go for it. I mean, I just showed this card the other day. You know, this is a 51 Bowman Ted Williams. I've loved this card for a long time. And I was like, that is a really, really nice copy that I think is undergraded, which meets my criteria. It's pretty well centered. It's got great eye appeal. And compared to the comps, he was asking 10 to 15% under comps for a high-end version of it. And I'm like, okay. And why am I not buying this right now? So then he had a best offer. Now, a best offer always means that the price isn't the real price. So I'm like, do I risk it? And do I make an offer, or do I? And I think he was asking $450 for that card, if I remember correctly. I think I offered $400. If he said no and it went back to $450, I was like literally thinking about just paying $450 anyway. He countered me with $425, and I'm like, I was pumped. If that card went on auction, I think that card would have sold for, in that condition with that centering, I think that card would have been well into the fives. So there usually auctions are better usually, but there are definitely buy it now deals where people just, they don't realize the premium of centering sometimes. They just go off of comps. And if centering is a premium for me, then it's a good deal.
It makes sense. That's kind of my thought process too. I have a huge watch list. I check it every morning. If there's a buy it now that I feel is a great deal, I go after it. If not, you know, that's pretty much the only way that I end up getting a deal and buy it now. I don't have the time all day to do searches to look for other buy it now. So I usually tend to buy a lot of cards on auction if my save searches aren't working out for me. But Darren, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say for me, it's been a crapshoot, right? The best deal I've ever gotten on a card, I think I got at auction. I got the 39 play ball Ted Williams in a 4. The auction that I bought this in, I literally put my initial bid in, and then no one else bid on it, and no snipes came in or anything, and I just got it for my initial bid. So that was that to me, that was like, oh, cool, that's awesome. I'm gonna start doing more auctions.
Yeah.
I was trying to find Playing Days Joe Jackson. This one I couldn't find buy it now, so I did an auction and I ended up winning it. So that was good because I got a car that I couldn't buy. Just there weren't any buy it now. But at the same time, I've been almost burned by auctions. Right? When I bought my 38 Gaudi DiMaggio, I was bidding on it in a 3. And the price just kept jumping and jumping. I'm like, crap, this is the highest it's ever gone for. And then it just went up and up. And I took, to keep myself from doing something stupid, I took the opposite of Mangini's advice, and I told my wife what my most recent bid was, and then she knocked that. Yeah, give me your phone. Don't touch it. Fine. And I was really sad. Honestly, I was sad. The next day, I was so just like At work, I was like, "Hey, what's wrong?" I'm like, "I didn't get the DiMaggio rookie." And they're like, "What are you, like 5 years old?" I'm like, "Stop it, leave me alone." But it worked out because Sammy Thunder had a video of when he was at a card show and he was showing a case and it had that same DiMaggio, 38 guy DiMaggio scribbles, but instead of in a 3, this guy had it in a 4. He gave me the guy's contact info and I bought it from him, and I paid thousands less for the 4 than I was bidding on the 3. And if I had won it, I would have been really pissed 2 days later when I saw this, right? So, to me, it's get the deal where you can get the deal. It doesn't matter if it's buy it now, make an offer, buy it at an eBay auction, or buy it some other way.
You're muted,
You're on
Theo.
mute.
Okay. That's the only thing about an auction. The juices are flowing. Guys are competitive.
Right.
You might kind of get caught up in it. Yeah. That's so funny.
I use Gixxon. I use Gixxon to snipe my stuff because otherwise I don't want to get caught up in that. And so, I wait until there's about a day left. I put in my snipe bid, and then if I get it, I get it, and if I don't, I don't. A couple months ago I got my Jim Brown rookie finally, and when I got my Jim Brown rookie, I'm like, I bid way over what I got it for. I mean, it was I bid the high of the high end of comps on that card, and I got it in the middle of comps, and I felt like it was a really high end copy of a 3. And so if it had been a buy it now or a best offer, I would have paid more than I ended up paying at auction.
Let me give you solo. My fault.
No, you're good.
That's a beautiful card.
So to me, it's like there are times that auctions, you're like, oh my gosh, like the worst is when you're the second highest bidder by $2. That's
Right.
brutal. But sometimes you bid, like in that card, I don't remember exactly. I think I paid about middle 8s for it, and my bid was in the 9s, and it was just like, so
yeah,
it just depends. But I don't think people can just dismiss buy it nows, because sometimes people don't know what they have, and they don't know that it's undergraded, and they don't know the premium of centering on that particular card. And
so Darren, I got to ask you this: have you ever done a mega bid?
No, I don't even know what that is. What is it?
A mega bid is whenever, let's say the card comps for 1,000, you put in a bid for 2,000. I'm going to make sure I get this card.
No, I've never done that. I mean, I don't mind spending money on cards. Obviously, I work too hard for it to just throw it away. To be honest with you, like I've never done that. Now, if there's definitely been times I've been pissed, right? Like I was bidding on the Honus Wagner card, and I lost. I got sniped. I lost it by like $10. Did that piss me off? Yeah, I would have bid hundreds more to make sure. But I've never done a mega bid. No, I've never done that. I've never overpaid for something. There's nothing I want. There's no card I want so bad right now that I'll pay double what it's worth for it. I'll wait.
Mookie said his mega bids are micro, $20 to $30 range. That's hilarious. So Mookie, since I think you're at home now, do you need me to text you the link? Doesn't everybody want Mookie to come out on the screen tonight? What do you guys think?
Oh yeah,
I would love it. I would love it.
Yeah, we should. Everybody in the chat start saying Mookie. All right. While we wait for Mookie to show up, Graig, you might want to send him the link. But Darren's doing a VR right now. He's doing. Do you want to talk about the VR you're doing, Darren?
Yeah, thanks. Yes, I'm doing a VR for 600 subs. I hit 600 subs a couple weeks ago, so I figured I haven't done a VR giveaway for a while, so I figured I'd do so. I needed a reason, so there it is. So what I wanted to do in my VR is I want people to shout out 3 channels with less than 200 subscribers to help get more people checking out some of the newer channels. And then since it's a card community, show your couple of your favorite cards in your collection. It doesn't have to be the most expensive or whatever, just 2 cards that you want to show. No real rule, pick 2. And when you do the VR, these are the prizes. So you tell me in the VR which one of these, because I'm going to have 3 drawings. I'm going to give all 3 away. So you tell me which drawing you want to be in. Do you want a T206 Hugh Jennings card because you're old school vintage? Are you golden era and you want a Playing Days Willie Mays card? Or are you modern and you want the Griffey? Which, by the way, my wife made me feel really old when I referred to this as the modern card, and she said that card's 35 years old. And I was like, holy shit, it is. So, but yeah, that's it. Boom. Do that. Call out 3 channels, show a couple cards. That's all you got to do. 2-3 minute videos, fine. And then just let me know which of the 3 cards you want to be in the drawing for, and I'm giving all 3 away.
Cool. Well, let's I'm gonna shout out some channels under 200 or close to 200. Greg's gonna shout out a couple. Does anybody in the chat want to shout out a couple? I'll put them up on the screen when somebody does the replay. They could see them. I want to start. I'll start. Can I start?
Okay. I'm afraid you're gonna take mine, but go ahead.
I'll just do one then. For right now. Hammer 44. I believe he's still under 200. I have no clue why. I'll show the Hank Aaron card that I got from my father's collection. I just love this card.
Nice.
So I'll show the All-Star and Hammer 44. Check out his channel. So Greg, I'll let you go now.
So Hobby News Daily, I think wasn't Dylan just on yesterday, the day before. Hobby News Daily with Danny is, I think, I like the conversational stuff. I like for me, this is extremely fun. Like, I've been looking forward to hanging out with you guys all week, and or I guess it was only 3 or 4 days, but I enjoy this, and I enjoy other people talking like this. I don't know if I'm the only person that feels that way, but that's basically the Hobby News Daily thing is, and they're at 190 subscribers right now. I don't know why it's not higher than that. So that's definitely one of my picks. Another one, a really, really nice guy. I know a lot of people like reveal videos, PSA, SGC reveal videos. There's a guy, 3G Slabs, and 3G Slabs is he does a lot of reveal videos, but what I like about him is in the same video, he shows you the cards beforehand. He talks about what he thinks he's going to get, really shows the card, front and back, and I think it's going to get this and that, and he kind of does a prediction, and then it fast forwards to once he's got the cards back, and he opens them up once they're now back, and he shows you like how they turned out, and trying to if he was right or not. And I think he does a great job. And again, he's a super nice guy. I mean, he's at 173 subscribers. And then my third one, I'm still waiting for him to text back. My boy Mookie Chilson. We joke and he's in a lot of the chats, but there are few people out there. There you go. You got your
Mookie starter kit.
There you go. Mookie, I mean, there are very few people out there in the world that are better humans than Mookie. So his channel is great, super positive, doesn't take himself seriously, has a lot of fun. And so I think that Mookie's channel, if you're not subscribed to Mookie, he's a little over 200, I think. So that one's a little bit of a cheat. But if anything, just to, connect with him and respond to his videos and get a conversation go with him because he's a great guy. So those are my 3.
Nice.
Awesome. Hey, we got Mike Petty that's been in the chat. He's way under 200 subs, guys. Sub him right now.
He hasn't made a video. He hasn't made a video.
We got to get him to come out there and make a video. Sub him right now, guys. You can sub him. Oh, man.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you doing that. Which drawings you guys want to be in?
Oh, does this count for me?
Yeah, it counts. This is a video, and you name channels, and you showed a bunch of cards.
Oh my god! I got to tell you something. This is my first VR ever. I've never done a VR.
There we go.
So
Thank you.
I mean, it didn't hurt that much. I will go with, this is going to surprise you. This is going to surprise you, but I've never had the Ken Griffey Jr. card.
Okay.
And I opened that half a box of cards at Christmas one year and didn't get one. I've never bought one, so I want to go in for the Griffey.
Okay.
That's cool. I was concentrating on doing what are the 3 cards again? I should have paid.
Hugh Jennings, a 64 tops Willie Mays, and a 89 Upper Deck Griffey.
Don't do the Griffey, Theo.
Oh, don't do the Griffey. All right. Put me down for the Mays. How about that? All right. All right. We've been on for an hour and 20 minutes. We've averaged 60 people in the chat.
Oh, wow.
Hey, we got to talk about a wide variety of topics, and it went really, really fast. I want to first off thank you 2 guys for showing up on a Friday. You guys are on the West Coast, so did you guys miss dinner with your family tonight, or are you guys eating after this? What's going on?
No, we planned around it.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, we did. We did too.
Wow, you guys are the best.
Too, but it was well worth it. I love hanging out with you guys, and that's the other thing I was going to say about the 3 channels that I just shouted out to, is it's like, for me, there's a lot of great people in this hobby. There really are. I'm kind of blown away at how kind everyone has been towards me and accepting of me, of, my faults and all. But, coming on with you 2 guys, you guys are 2 of my favorites, and a lot of my other favorites are in the chat right now. So, doing this on a Friday night is like, this was like going to the football game in high school with all your buddies. That's the new high school football game, is coming on with you guys on a stream.
Yeah, it's like the old days when the guys would all go to the bars every night and this is like that, like just hanging out with some buddies, talking about just different stuff, debating different stuff. So, yeah. Thank you to everybody in the chat. There's some great people in the chat tonight, very active. And thank you for watching 4 Collectors. We'll see you on the next one, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.